BiggerPockets filled a massive demand. At the time, there was only education through these big events that were throwing these workshops and little things. And, long story short, I think no business is immune to having to pivot, BiggerPockets included.
So the other thing that was interesting about that podcast is I'm giving financial advice to the listener based on my own experience of like, if I didn't have this money saved, I'd be cooked. And so it was a stressful position to be in, I would say, when you have this much influence over people and you're giving financial advice. But that's what's in my heart, man. I don't want to tell people to go scale super big and quit their job when I'm seeing that would have caused destruction for me.
Recently, you left BP. I think we should probably just start with that and get it out of the way.
Yes.
So
rip the Band-Aid off.
You ripped the Band-Aid off. How's life?
Different. Started my own podcast, learning all about producing shows, trying to find video editors, launched it super quick. Like I didn't know that they were going to be making dropping the news basically that I wasn't going to be the podcast host. They had talked to me and said, hey, this is what's going to happen, but they didn't tell me when.
Yeah.
So I found out and we basically had to get a podcast out in like a couple days.
Yeah. Because people are like, oh, what's David going to do?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And it looks like it's already doing really well.
Yeah, we hit the top 10 on Spotify in the business category.
Yeah.
Which was pretty cool. And it's doing good on Apple Podcasts also. And my thumbnails are horrible. There's a lot of room for improvement right now.
Isn't that weird that you've been doing it so long, but you didn't have to do like much back end?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird how your brain shifts into what you even think about. So when I was recording for BiggerPockets, it was just, how do I make the best show that I can?
Yeah.
I never thought about how they picked a thumbnail. I just didn't care.
Yeah.
Now this happens. It's like when you have a kid probably. And you're like, oh my God, there's things all over the house that it's going to hurt them. And you just become aware of different stuff that you weren't before.
Yeah. Are you allowed to talk about why it happened? Because first off, how long were you the host?
Probably 7 years.
7 years.
That show, yeah.
And I think I was one of your first guests when you became the host too. This was back in 2018. You had just kind of started from what I remember. And so it's been a long time, like being aligned.
Yeah, it was like our first date.
Did it feel like a divorce kind of?
That's exactly how it feels actually. And you still kind of have kids together.
Yeah.
Because I publish books with them and my brand's tied to their brand. So I think that there's interest on both sides in keeping it mutually amicable.
Because
not
you got
having
kids.
bad blood, yes.
You got child support.
That's exactly right. Yep. We got to see each other on the holidays.
Well, maybe you're the child they have to support because they got to pay you royalties and book fees and stuff.
Yeah, it was something that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
I don't think it was like, there's no drama there. It wasn't like I did something terrible or anything. They just said, hey, we have another direction that we want to take the show in.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Rob and I were both told you guys aren't going to be the hosts anymore. And, we'll probably bring you guys back in the future to guest host or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rob kind of told me a couple weeks before it was official of, what he was trying to figure out and do and, everything else. So it'll be cool to see how he handles it. But, I'll have to have him back on the show too to talk. But no, I'm glad to see your podcast is doing great. I'm glad to see just freedom to do what you want. I remember I had a conversation with them a few years ago about potentially like hosting a show or something. I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm cut out for it. Like,
You have coaching programs.
Well, yeah, that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just don't want to listen to anybody. Like, I just want to do what I want to do. I don't want to be told I have to film at this time and, we got to do this I just like having complete control.
For sure, that's better when you have a vision.
Yeah.
And what was weird for me is that vision never really kicked in until I realized I have to do my own thing. Immediately, I just was like, all right, I need to do this. I need to do this. I don't know where that came from. Some form of divine inspiration, God's timing. It was because I always thought about if I did my own YouTube channel, I just don't know what to say. I don't know what I would do. I don't know what kind of videos to make. The minute that I found out that day, I was like, all right, I know I don't want to only do interviews because in the real estate investing space, there's a bit of what I call interview incest. You go on BiggerPockets.
Yeah.
Then you go on all of the B tier podcasts and you tell the same story that you just told on BiggerPockets. Then you go on the C tier podcasts that don't get that many views, but you go do it anyways. Then you launch a coaching program because now all of the little real estate investors are like, oh, you did this thing that you always hyped to make it look better than it really was. You make a bunch of money from the coaching programs, and then you try to get deeper into the BiggerPockets ecosystem to get more exposure, and you end up using that platform to build your own brand. It kind of becomes a launching pad for all of these people that could get in there. The problem is when you're listening to that person share their story, you're just hearing the same thing over and over that you could hear on all the other podcasts. I want to do some interviews like we're doing today But I also want to do what I call it's like Seeing Green. If you ever saw those on BiggerPockets, we take recorded questions from our database. People that say, "Hey, David, should I do this or should I do that? I'm having this problem. How do I get over this thing? Or what do I do when a contractor says this?" I play the question, then I answer it for everybody to hear.
Right.
And then I'll take like, "Hey, these are some comments that people put on YouTube or on Instagram. Here's some viral videos that are going on. Here's a deal I'm working on." So it's more than just an interview. You're actually getting to see me answer questions. And then the last piece will be topical shows where I get into specifics of a house that I'm trying to flip, a remodel that I have going on, a Burr property that I bought, a show on how to negotiate, right? Some of the content out of my book. So it's going to be more than just interviews.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. I think content is obviously always evolving. And we were talking about this because we just filmed an episode together for your show. And by the way, if you guys want to check that out, I'll link to David's channel down below so you guys can go subscribe to that. But, we just kind of talked about the evolution of things like BiggerPockets and coaching and everything else. And it was like, man, people and companies just have to evolve to stay relevant. And, what I was just saying, and so I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I was like, look, BiggerPockets filled a massive demand in the 2010s, let's just say. And, at the time, there was only education through these big events that were throwing these workshops and little things. And, that kind of got a bad rep. And so BiggerPockets came along, filled all this demand, kind of democratized information for real estate investors, put, just the authority out there for anyone to be known and to learn. And that's how I learned. And, but they did it with a mission of, hey, we're not going to sell anything, And so people loved it. And the problem came along when COVID hit. Those education companies went out of business. They stopped selling. BiggerPockets kept going and going. But then there was this rise of influencers and people like me and others. And, we came along and filled a new demand where people were like, look, we do want coaching. We just want to go with people we trust, not these big faceless companies that hire actors to pitch for them. We want to go with people like we trust and that we're going to get to meet. And, we kind of filled that demand the last bunch of years. And even now, I think it's changing. But, long story short, I think no business is immune to having to pivot, BiggerPockets included. And I think they're now kind of in a big adjustment period trying to figure out, well, dang, there's a lot of podcasts now. There's a lot of people who still want coaching. There's a lot of people who have lots of options now. We're not the only option.
Yeah, and I think their decision to change Rob and I as the hosts were some form of pivot. Now, I don't work at BiggerPockets. I don't own BiggerPockets. I think that looks like that from the outside looking into a lot of people.
You and Brandon don't own all of it?
That's correct. I didn't own any of it. So I was contracted to host their podcast and to write books and to sort of, in a sense, be a face for the company. And I took that responsibility very seriously, did my very best to represent them as well as I could.
You were talent.
Yeah, there you go. And I was talent in the way that Mickey Mouse might be talent for Disneyland. Right? You don't want Mickey Mouse doing cocaine or something crazy. Like, you got to keep the brand name the way that that you want it to look. But when you're in that position, they can make the decision that they can pivot and they can go away from what you're doing. So now the David Greene show and some of the next steps that I'll be working on and the evolution of my career and the pivoting that I'll have to be doing will be my thing.
Yeah. Real estate investors, are you tired of getting low-quality leads and talking with sellers who've been hit up by everyone else? Well, what if you could get inbound leads of motivated sellers on autopilot without any effort? Well, that's exactly what we do at Lead Kitchen. Over the years, I've spent millions of dollars on direct-to-seller marketing. I've done PPC. I've done TV commercials. I've done cold calling, text messaging, direct mail. I've done the pay-per-lead services. And look, all of them can work. A lot of them don't. At the end of the day, I have found a new method that is getting me better results than I've ever seen in my career. I'm getting lower cost per leads than ever before, and it's not just in Las Vegas, it's across the country. And so if you want to take advantage of this new innovative marketing strategy that takes no effort on your end, I want you to go to leadkitchen.com and book a call with my team today. Imagine having my team running your marketing with the same leads that I'm getting in my business. That's what you can have. So just go to leadkitchen.com today and book a call. I love it. So enough about that. I want to talk about real estate and business and some of the things because I know behind the scenes, you others have gone through a lot of tough things, and obviously leaving the show being one of the things. Can you talk about like what it's been like going through such a season?
I mean, that leaving the show was like the cherry on the top of a terrible Sunday. It's been just thing after thing after thing going wrong. So I'll try to give you an overview, and I'm going to miss a lot of it. But about 2.5 years ago, somebody figured out how to steal title to about 40 properties that I owned in Florida.
Whoa.
Successfully stole them, sold them to other people as a wholesaler. I found out about it, got the police involved. They caught the guy. He was convicted. But during that process, I lost control of the properties, and the majority of them were turned into trap houses, drug homes, prostitution, stole all my copper, stole my air conditioning units. Like the whole thing went to hell. So when I finally got those properties back, they were just in terrible shape. The tenants hadn't been paying rent because they had all left when the guy showed up at the house to try to get rent from them instead of me. And I had to sell them all to a hedge fund before someone else could steal them because the state of Florida said, hey, we can't stop this from happening again.
What?
Yes.
It's just a thing in Florida,
It's
period?
a glitch in their website that manages the legal entities. It hasn't had to do with the county assessor's office that manages title. So basically their website had a glitch in it where you could go in and you could add yourself as a
registered agent whatever.
Of that LLC,
Right.
which gave you some authority now if you could pay off a notary or something to legally, not you're doing it illegally, but the title would legally be moved to your entity. Then you go register that with the county and boom, that title's yours now. So
Holy moly.
I had a judgment issued in my favor from this, but it was catastrophic financially. And I had 2 people I just hired to work for me that both had to quit because they couldn't keep up with the pressure trying to deal with this. So I'm pushing to a 1031 now. And that goes bad on the very last day of when I have to identify the properties. So now I got to buy like $12-15 million worth of real estate in one day. So, yeah. So I have a guy who's my agent that was a referral from a business partner. Turns out that the guy is a horrible person. Made about $250,000 in commissions off me buying all this real estate, and then add some stuff to the contract that I didn't know about. My assistant signs the contract not knowing he had snuck something in to move it from 1 year to 3-year contract when he made some revisions. He knew we weren't going to look at it. And then doesn't advertise my short-term rentals on Airbnb or VRBO. He was supposed to. I tell him, hey, you have to do this per the contract. He uploads pictures from the MLS that were horrible. I bought like the ugliest houses I could get my hands on. He's doing direct booking to be able to make more money. And then more importantly, the bad reviews his company is getting are not transparent. You can't see them because it's all being done directly through his company. So the Airbnb and VRBO, when they finally put it up there, I can see we're getting 1, 2, 3-star reviews on all these properties. They're dropping to the bottom of the algorithm. The properties are just doing terrible. And when I finally tell the guy, dude, I put up with enough of this, I'm taking them back, threatens me with a lawsuit for
the 3 years.
Yes, because it's breach of contract, basically. So he's done terrible the whole time, hits me with that. Then I get a message from someone who claims to be in his company telling me, hey, you need to know this is all the shady stuff that's going on in this company. Gives me a list of all the terrible stuff that's going on. And that's scratching the surface of what's happened. I buy a bunch of other grade A properties in some of the best cities. I buy them right and I get in great locations. I apply for short-term rental permits because there's nothing that stops you from doing it. The city sends the inspectors to these 4 properties, somewhere in California, somewhere in Florida. And what happens is this is how they're catching investors. The inspector says, hey, I see here that you have 2 bathrooms added to this house built in 1901. I didn't do this work. Bathrooms were added in the 50s. No permits were pulled. You're going to need to fix that. Hey, I see that this carport was converted into a garage probably in the 70s. No one got a permit for that. You need to tear it apart and turn it into a carport. Hey, this kitchen remodel was done. We don't have a record of it. Rip apart your kitchen and we need to look at it. They find all of these little technicalities that are going to cost me into the hundreds of thousands of dollars per property now.
What market is this?
South Florida. So like north of Miami. I bought in a couple cities over there. And then Bay Area, California.
Okay.
So you know about the things that can go wrong. We all know as investors, you might make a mistake. You might lose some money. But in almost every scenario, when that happens, you sell it, you take a loss, you move on.
Yeah.
I can't sell them because they've got these permitted issues. They're all red tagged. The next buyer would have the same problems. The city won't actually work with you to get them fixed. It's been over 2 years, and I'm spending tens and tens of thousands of dollars on architectural and engineering fees to get all this stuff drawn up. We submit it to the city. They find something else, they kick it back. You're dealing with W-2 city employees that don't care. Over 2 years.
Have you hired a lawyer or anything?
Every lawyer I've talked to has said we aren't going to get involved with the city being. I mean, I'm trying to find lawyers at this point that will take it on. They all were just like, there's nothing we can do. We don't have experience dealing with. I don't think anyone sues cities for this type of thing. They just have all the power.
People sue cities.
If you know anyone out there that's a lawyer to do this,
comment below. But people do sue the city all the time.
All the lawyers that I've been recommended have said like they don't have experience doing it.
Right.
But I'm trying to, because that's like, I don't know what else to do to get out of it. So for 2 years, probably bleeding over $100,000 a month in these mortgages between the rentals that I can't get performing in the Smoky Mountains, which should be a solid market.
That's with the shady guy.
Yes. And these other properties that I can't get the permits for. So you can't sell them. They turn off the power to the properties. So you can't rent them out to anybody. You start getting mold growing in your properties now because the city's turned off the power to it. And they're hitting you with these massive, like this ADU in the backyard. You're not allowed to have it. It's been there since the 70s. Doesn't matter. The person didn't complete the permitting process.
Did they only look at it because you applied for a short-term rental?
And the employees have told us that on the phone.
So up to this point,
they don't
care. Just a normal house.
Every other house on the street has the exact same stuff. Yeah. But they didn't apply for a short-term rental. So this is the way that cities are kind of catering to the will of their constituents that don't want short-term rentals so that the mayor can stay elected by going after these short-term rental operators when there's laws on the books that say you're allowed to operate a short-term rental. Then during the 1031, the escrow company completely missed a lien on that portfolio for about $550,000, just didn't see it. So I invested another $550,000. I didn't have to. The lien doesn't get paid off. Ironically, about 2 weeks after we close, the lien's due. The bank calls me. I'm like, no, that was paid off. And they said, no, it wasn't. Long story short, we paid off the first lien, not the second one. So then there's a $100,000 penalty for being late. $650,000 of money that I had in reserves disappears.
Wait a minute. How did all of this happen? Like
at the same time?
Well, same time, but also like during what failed during due diligence?
So I'm selling this portfolio of Florida properties. You have a 1031 company that is the intermediary that's going to collect your money.
Yeah.
You have an escrow company that's facilitating the sale.
Yep.
The escrow company sees a lien that was recorded for $550,000. I had a second lien for the same amount on this property because what I basically did was I built up a line of credit with the bank. When I hit my line of credit limit of $550,000, I refinanced that into a blanket loan and then built up the line of credit again for $550,000. The blanket loan, the title company or the escrow company found that and paid it off. I think what happened is one of their employees saw two different loans, both for $550,000, assumed it was the same loan recorded twice.
So this was on your properties?
This was on a portfolio of like 40 properties.
That you owned?
Yeah.
So you really owed 1.1?
Yes. And only $550,000 was paid off.
Got it.
And they're like, title insurance doesn't protect you when you're the seller. It protects the buyer from any defects that might be on the title.
Right.
So that hits me. Tons of money lost that I would have had in reserves. You're talking about like a lot of time spent.
Yeah, you were estimating that whatever they told you was the number, even though it wasn't necessarily wrong. It was just miscalculated.
That's because I did owe that money. I had to go pay that back. I'm not going to default on my debt.
Yeah,
but still, that's money you thought I didn't have to reinvest.
It was money you thought you had. And dude, I mean, that's a huge hit.
Then you buy more property than you needed to. Then I had another person that I invested in a deal with them after a business partner had recommended them. They're a scam artist. So it turns out that, I mean, that's a long story too, how they pulled this off. But basically, we bought a property, they sold it, they didn't send any of the money back. And they said, well, hey, we just lost money on this deal. And I'm like, how? I'm looking at the HUD sheet here. We didn't lose any money on it. It turns out that an assistant had signed off on this and they had added something into our deal that said I was giving them a gift of $400,000 to buy this property. Yes. The person I just hired to basically be like, she was a controller for a real estate developer. I had hired to come on and work for me and didn't know she was still working for her other boss too. And she had signed this operating agreement that we had for me. And this lady had thrown in another document. She just went through DocuSign, clicked it. My fault for not double checking it. This was happening when I was crazy busy. We were selling 50 houses a month on the David Greene team. I'm launching the one brokerage. I'm rapidly trying to hire and train agents to keep up with all the demand that we have. We're recording 3 podcasts a week. everything's crushing it financially. And I couldn't keep up with all of these tiny details. So I'm hiring people to help me do it. And these mistakes that they made become huge mistakes. So that's $400,000 lost. That basically this is like a scam artist that does this professionally, that had reached out to this partner to get in front of me and had won them over. And then they end up vouching for this person that does that. I bought a couple other rental properties and things. I mean, I could go into it forever about the number of stuff that went wrong. This is also happening at the same time that I'm going through a breakup with like really the only relationship that I had. So this was like the person I thought I was going to end up marrying, and it just abruptly, she started seeing somebody else, and like it's very hard to focus mentally when you have that type of thing going on. So there was a huge amount of like, how did this happen? Like, where was God to protect me in this entire story? Like, how is she okay doing this to me? And all of these things are going wrong, and at the same time, rates go up. So I have hundreds of thousands of dollars coming in a month. So I'm buying this real estate, and I didn't expect these things to go wrong, but at the same time, I have a ton of money coming in that can cover me, right? Like, I could have paid off all these properties with cash if it got really bad. Well, when rates go up, escrows go down, loans go down, your staff starts quitting because they're not making enough money, or the money they have to make is harder. Your leaders start leaving the companies because the money's not flowing in like it was before. I'm telling everybody, hey, the gravy train's over. Now you got to go to work. And they're like, yeah, I didn't sign up to work. I signed up to get on that BiggerPockets gravy train at David Greene, and that's what I wanted. Then I have a guy that was in my mortgage business that I had helped grow him into a superstar, connected him with every realtor that I knew, really talented kid, gets recruited from another loan company and steals our clients and loan processors and other loan officers to go start another branch with himself. Doesn't tell anyone that he doesn't work for me anymore. He still has that whole database of people that I've been connecting him with over the years. That was like a financially devastating move. It was just every day I would go into the office and say, how could another thing be going wrong? And then you've got all these properties that you're dealing with the city, and you're doing everything the city asks, and you're not making any progress. Nothing. And the economy is getting worse. So it hit a point where maybe 5 years ago, it's like everything I touched was turning to gold. My problems were like, we have all this business, we have all these leads, we have all these clients. How do we make sure we service them as good as we can? To we're bleeding.
Now we're in survival mode.
How do we hemorrhage this? And the people that are brought in to help stitch you up are quitting. I mean, it was like, I never thought this could happen to me because I was just so prudent, careful. I didn't spend money on stuff, man. Like, I was always just save the money. I still drive a Toyota Camry 2017. I never went and spent money on things thinking this is what's going to keep me safe, right? I don't want to be the real estate influencer that ever loses everything. And so I need to have all this money in reserves. And then I'm in a position where I'm like, I don't know what other than foreclosure.
Yeah.
I don't know how you get the city to let these things go. And I mean, we literally have staff that calls them every single day and says, what do you need next? And it's just some W-2 worker that doesn't give a shit, who just sits there and they're like, oh, well, we're waiting on zoning. We're waiting on planning. We're waiting on building. We're waiting on fire. And that person gets to it when they get to it, and you just get stuck. And now the BiggerPockets news hits. So I say this because a lot of people, I'm not the only one, maybe I'm the only one with the disaster this bad, but a lot of the people in our space are not doing well. And those highlight reels don't make Instagram. They don't make the YouTube videos. This isn't what the people are listening that are trying to figure out how to build wealth from real estate are hearing.
Well, bro, that's heavy. And, number one, I just want to say I appreciate you being vulnerable because, like you said, very few people are willing to share the losses, especially, man, like, you got hit literally from every angle.
Yeah. Relationships,
money, people, loyalty,
staff,
like all of it. And that's just, man, I can't imagine. And then just too, like, I want to just say, I think your prudence and everything you talked about before is the only reason you're still standing.
That's a true statement. Yeah.
Had you been even just a less bit responsible, you don't have the cash. You aren't able to, and I know you're still going through it. So it's definitely not even over yet. But I can tell you as a guy who's gone through lots of failure as well over the last couple of years, dude, by no means is it easy. Losing money sucks. Losing people sucks. it's tough. And I guess like for me, when I'm looking at it, and I'll share, I don't want to make this about me. So I'll share some of my own things in a minute, but, I guess for you, like, where are you at mentally today with all of that?
I mean, it's a good question. There's other deals with like a guy that was supposed to be a friend, ripped me and a lot of other big name influencers off, selling us properties. You go through like emotional betrayal, you'll feel, and then you go through like this almost like a hopelessness. Like, I don't know how to get out of it. Maybe I can't get out of it. Right. And one of the things I had to learn to do was to be okay with the reality that I could lose properties. Like, that in my mind was never acceptable. Like, if I give my word I'm paying back this loan, I will drive that Camry till the wheels go off, but I will pay back those debts. And it was incredibly painful just to accept that I might not be able to. Like, that level of failure was just not okay. I think I had to accept that I'm never going to not be able to pay debts because I was just selfish and was like, what's my money and I want to keep it type of a thing. But if those circumstances happen that are outside of your control, and I did lose all these houses and all this opportunity, it's better to have had it and lost some of it than if you just never had it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And you have to remind yourself that you can get it back, or the things you learned on this journey will still benefit you in your life in some way and benefit other people. And the positive side to me is like, I don't think anybody has ever gotten stronger with a workout that wasn't hard. Nobody has ever grown more mature without dealing with some kind of adversity, right? So
Right.
If your goal is to be a person of influence, to be someone that can make a difference in the kingdom, to be a more useful person to God, you can't say that you want that, but then be like, but I don't want all the pain that's going to come with it.
Yeah.
Like, you and I talked a little bit about your career on my other show, and you didn't say this, but I'm sure it's true that waking up every day and going to play baseball, not knowing if you're going to make it, is painful.
Yeah.
To put that much of your heart and soul and time and eggs in that basket and get told in some form or fashion every day you're not good enough is like every man's worst fear. It sucks.
Yeah.
To have to do it. And there is a pain that you learned to harness and deal with and accept that I think had a huge role in what propelled you to where you are now. Like, that's the fuel that's going to take you there. I look for ways right now in my life that this pain, this helplessness, this frustration will become something that will propel me into whatever the next season's going to be. And it might not be just having a bunch of real estate and owning a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I think I'm curious to hear what you say, but like, as I've gone through the same market you've gone through and have different failures, businesses shut down, lawsuits, properties go south, every way you can imagine. I've always found a way to get through it. I'm like, all right, well, this is what we're going to do for the people. And, some are going to be excited about it. Others won't be. And that just is what it is. There's nothing, you'll never please everybody with anything. And so we're going to do that. And then, okay, over here, we're going to do this. And then we're going to shut down this. And, but in every situation, I was able to come up with a solution before it got to the point of, let's just say, helplessness, where it's like, hey, you know what? I'm out of solutions. Like, it's just, this isn't going to work out, and we're going to just have to let the properties go, or whatever the case is. But I have thought about it in different scenarios where I'm just like, all right, because I run every scenario through my head. I'm like, what happens if it does happen?
Yeah, the what if game.
Yeah, so, okay, this will happen. My reputation will have this. These people will be upset. This is what's going to happen. And, I've just realized when you play out the worst case scenario, it usually gives you more comfort because you play it out and then you look at like, okay, these are all the negative things. So assuming that happens, what's next? And you look at the positive things. And, for me, I'm like, I still have my wife. I still have my kids. I still have this company that's doing this. Yeah, I lost these properties, but I have these still, or I still have this going on.
Right.
I'm going to be all right,
And you're better having those things than if you had done nothing out of fear of what could go wrong.
Correct. And so, I just want to encourage you and anyone listening that if you're scared of the unknown, like, play it out as if the worst case did happen, and then go through it emotionally, mentally, and then figure out, hey, I felt it. Then what would happen after that? What would I do? And then you think about it and you're like, you know what? I would survive.
Yeah.
I'd still be here.
Right.
It's not, people are going to talk crap, and guess what? It'll be in the news cycle for like 24 hours and it's done.
Right.
And then like, all right, I'm going to go redeem myself. Plenty of people have redeemed themselves many times. That's like, America always loves a comeback, and I think it actually is going to be very common here in the next 2 years. There's going to be a lot of real estate investors who lose properties, and it just is what it is. It happened in 2008. Nobody's looking at anyone in 2008.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Like, oh man, dude, remember he lost? It's like, yeah, a lot of people did. He rebuilt.
So here's some of the irony of it. These were all properties that were bought for cash flow.
That short-term rental cash flow.
There you go, right? Like, so this idea that cash flow will keep you safe, not true.
It got you in your biggest problem of your life.
There you go. What will save me will be if I could just get the city to clear the damn tags, and I could.
What will save you is making active income.
That's what's been like.
That's the only thing
bleeding,
that's kept
but
it
you
going.
have some form of active income that's coming that stops the bleeding for me as bad as it was. Reserves,
active income.
I've been preaching about for forever. You need more reserves than you think. Quit with this idea that you're going to quit your job the minute that you get some real estate and now you don't have to work. It's because I spent years saving money that I'm in the position I can even weather this storm. And then the equity that I created in these properties I bought, when I go to sell them, is going to be what keeps me from being underwater on them. So the irony that I've found is that the typical advice that every real estate investor keeps getting from the other gurus out there is what caused the problems. And the things that we consider to be risky, or, well, why invest in real estate if you're still going to have to work, are exactly what kept me safe. And that's what tempers a lot of the financial advice that I give people.
Yeah. It's funny because I've been saying it forever. Like, your first step is creating active income and getting high income skills. Inflation is crazy. Right now, $3 won't even get you a gallon of gas or a cup of coffee. But the good news is it'll get you my wholesaling blueprint and a trial to Wealthy University. You might be wondering, Ryan, what are those? Well, Wealthy University is our online community where you're going to be able to network with 6, 7, and 8-figure real estate investors and entrepreneurs. We have live calls every single week. You can come and ask me questions directly every single Tuesday, and you have access to all of our courses, all the recordings of WealthCon, and exclusive events. Along with that, you're also going to get our wholesaler's blueprint, which is going to give you all the scripts we use when we talk to sellers, all the contracts that we've used to lock up hundreds of deals, and you'll even get my contractor's guide, which gives you all of the materials we use in our house flips. And if that wasn't enough, I'm also going to give you a copy of my 2 books, The Wealthy Way and Flip Your Future. All of that will be yours for just $3 by going to wealthyuniversity.com. There is no better deal for $3, especially when inflation's on the rise. So instead of maybe getting half a cup of coffee, go to wealthyuniversity.com and go get the wholesaler's blueprint and your trial today. Which, if you're in real estate, there's only 2. It's just you flip or you wholesale. And in investing, you could be an agent, you could be a loan officer, but whatever, right? Like, active income only comes in a few ways of real estate. And then, if you have that skill, you'll always have that to fall back on and ride you out through different storms of your career. And, that's what I literally say that out of my own advice. It's like, I could not lose millions of dollars if I did not make money.
That's right.
Throughout the way and make millions. I had to remake the money.
Yes.
And that's how we've been able to move along. And I don't even want to say without a hitch. I mean, the perception to people outside may seem like that. They're like, dude, it's just like, you keep moving and keep going. And I'm like, bro, it's been hard. And, I try to say it on the podcast, but people just, whatever. They just think what they think. So, yeah, I think active income. Do you think that, like, what made you get into the short term? Like, were you just influenced when you were like, you know what? I need to just do this.
I wasn't planning on it. That stealing of the title forcing me to sell 40 properties was part of it. I'm like, look, instead of managing 40 properties that have a new headache every week and a new email from a property manager and a new air conditioner and a new roof and a new garage door that somebody broke, you're constantly fixing this stuff. What if I could just have 10 short-term rentals that are going to cash flow stronger, and they're going to be, then it's just less work, be easier for me. That was part of it. And then getting forced into that 1031 that I had to execute much faster than I thought wasn't the best part. But I bought 18 houses over a 60-day period. Mm-hmm. When you look at what I paid versus what they appraised for, I made $1 million in equity. I didn't irresponsibly buy real estate. The things that hurt me was the things like the city getting involved in shutting you down that you can't control. And a lot of these were burrs, and I bought all of these deals and interest rates.
And by the way, for anyone listening, as much as this is like a worst case scenario of what could happen, versions of this happen with volume of almost every deal.
Right.
You know, I recently lost a couple $100,000 on a flip that I had to take 2 years to do because the person who sold me it had a ex-wife who was still living there. And he owned it 100%, but she did not want to leave. And she, got a lawyer, fought it, eventually lost 2 years in. But I paid hard money and private money for 2 years waiting for her. She left it out a mess. Mm-hmm. And it was what it was.
Right.
She had no penalty for losing and just doing what she did.
Correct.
And I had no recourse for the seller because he legitimately owned it. The title company approved it, and it's like she's gonna do what she does. Like, that's outside of us. You did have clear title. She's just suing you as a tenant.
Look at all the people during COVID that had cash flowing real estate with tenants that decided, I'm just not going to pay my rent. You can't evict me because of COVID.
Yeah,
they didn't make a bad decision. No one could have foreseen that coming.
Yeah,
cash flow is supposed to be the safe bet, and then all of a sudden your tenants decide they're not going to give you that cash to create the cash flow. And what do?
Let me ask you this. Do you even like rental properties?
Oh, it feels like when you eat bad food, you want to throw up.
You're like, I'm never buying these again.
The thought of it is like horrible. Just like, I don't even want to hear the word real estate anymore. But that's because I'm having an emotional response to, just like you said, it wasn't a thing or two went bad. It was everything went bad, all roughly within the same period of time. And you do have to keep in mind, like, when everything was going great, when rates kept going lower and the government kept printing money and properties kept appreciating and rents kept going up and my businesses kept growing, I wasn't sitting there every day like, I can't believe how lucky I am. You just expect it.
It's expectation.
Yeah. And that's not fair. Like, one of the things I'll tell people is, when you're late to work and you hit a red light, it is so easy to feel sorry for yourself.
Yeah.
What do you know? Of course their light's red every time I need something. But when you catch every green light, you're not thanking God every time. Like, thank you so much. Yeah. You expect it, right? And it sort of reveals, just as a human being, we tend to have an immature emotional state. We pay attention to everything that we don't like, and we take for granted the things that go well.
Yeah. Yeah, the more I've thought about rental properties, it's interesting because back to, for me, losing, I made active income and was able to offset a lot of it, but I also sold rental properties along the way that had a lot of equity. And so rental properties were also part of the solution for helping me get out of it, because I had built up a portfolio. And it's made me realize that, to me anyways, I expect my rentals to not make me anything, period. Like, even if, like, I'm buying them to cash flow, but I'm expecting they make zero. I'm not counting on anything, because I'm expecting they're going to have some drama that's going to cost me something.
Yep.
And what I'm looking at them as a piggy bank tax advantage thing. So it's just like, yep, I'm buying this because I'm going to get a tax break this year and I need it. So great. And, I'm getting a great deal. I will only buy good deals. So I'm only going to buy it if I'm getting 20% off. And so I'm going to build in equity. If I ever do want to sell it, I already know I got built-in equity. And I'm going to sit on this thing for however many years, and it's a piggy bank. That's all it is to me. It's never been about cash flow ever when it comes to rentals. And that's just my mindset, period. And I don't care if it actually does cash flow.
You're hoping it does. We're not sending money back.
But even if it does, like, what are we talking here? I mean, we're talking very little money relative to what you can make in active income if you're that good. If I'm that good, think about it. If I'm that good at finding discounted real estate to buy as rental properties, and I'm making active income that requires me to buy a lot of rental properties for depreciation, that must mean I make a lot of active income and I'm really good. Therefore, any cash flow that these rentals make is inconsequential to what I make in active income.
As far as how it can impact your life. But it gets sold to people listening like, do you hate your life? Do you hate your job? Does your girlfriend not respect you? Does the cat sit on somebody else's lap instead of yours because it doesn't like you anymore? You know how we can fix that? Get enough cash flow and your whole life will be better. It's the easiest sales pitch ever if you tell people that they can have a completely different life with a couple rental properties.
Yeah.
And so it gets unrealistically portrayed to real estate investors. That doesn't mean cash flow is bad. I think if you got rental properties that are paid off, your cash flow becomes a lot stronger. You own them for 15 years of rent
the risk
increases.
is significantly less.
Way
everything.
less. It's not that we are against cash flow. It is that this idea that in 3 years, you're going to be able to feed your family off of the rent coming in from your tenants is incredibly difficult to achieve.
Yeah. In 3 years, yeah, I've never seen anyone do it. So it's not.
And
really.
I'll say this, the reason that you can accomplish it in 15 years, in addition to principal reduction, is inflation causes rents to go up.
Yeah.
Well, you know what else inflation causes to go up? Value of the house.
Yep.
So when you look at how much money you made off of increased rent versus how much you made off of the increased value, it dwarfs it.
Yeah, the value's where it's
It's
at.
not even close, right? So what you find is that with appreciation, you have more control over it because you control the price you pay, because you control the value that you add to the property. You control when you buy. You monitor what the government's doing and when they're printing more money. And then you wait and the results are compounded because you use leverage to buy. So you put 20% down on that house, but the house doubles. That's a 5x return on your 20% as opposed to a 2x return on the house doubling. Now rents can go up, but like you said, it's like another $600, $700, $800 a month or so. Is that nothing? No, that's nice, but it's nothing like the $300,000 of equity that you can gain buying real estate and waiting, or even more. And when you have it over 10 houses, you're talking about $3 million. How long does it take you to save $3 million in cash flow?
A lot.
Yeah, like we don't live that long, right? Methuselah could have done that, but if you're trying to actually build wealth, doing it through cash flow, you have way less control. You don't control market rents. You don't control what the tenant's going to do. You don't control if they trash your house. You have way more control over the appreciation. And by the way, that's not speculation. I think people hear appreciation, they assume that means buy a house and hope it goes up. No, you can buy into it with equity, like you were just saying.
Yeah. Yep. It's tough, man. So I just want to let you know, I salute you for being vulnerable, and I know you're definitely not even out of it yet. And I've even seen that for myself, where I'm like, man, it feels like we're finally turning a corner, and it feels good. And then I'm like, yep, and I still have these 3 issues. And then I'm sure when I solve these 3 issues, I'm gonna have 3 more issues. And now I've come to the conclusion, like Solomon in Ecclesiastes, where I'm just like, yep, life is tough. No matter what you do, it's tough. Enjoy the normal days where the weather's good, and, enjoy friends and family, because guess what? There's going to be just highs and lows all the time.
It's just so true. That's one of the things that I have literally changed about my mindset that you're saying is, if I can't stop everything from going wrong, I got to find something in the day to be grateful for.
Exactly.
Got to find something.
Gratefulness is what solves all of this.
There you go. And that's part of where that attitude comes from is, hey, if worst case scenario happened, I'm so glad I took the journey. Right. Yeah. And I don't have regret that I was foolish or I was immoral, or
I learned a lot from it, and I'm going to do better next time.
There you go. And I'm a better person because of the experiences I went through, buying the properties, fixing them up, negotiating them. All those skills will still help you in whatever your next endeavor is.
Let me ask you this. How did it feel, I guess, as you've been going through this the last couple of years, being the host of, BiggerPockets, and like having to be on the show and be the expert and talk to these people while you're going through just the ringer?
Yeah, that's a good question, Ryan. You should have a podcast. Feels terrible, man. Like you just got off the phone with somebody saying, hey, turns out that person stole $400,000 from you. Hey, this agent just quit and took these clients with them. Hey, whatever the thing is that happened. And then we go on and we're interviewing some other investor, and there's a very good chance I feel like they're full of it. I'm like, dude, I know that what you're saying is not the way it works, right?
Yeah.
But
like every property I have, none of them have ever had vacancy. It's weird.
Amazing, right? I've never had a tenant trash a property that I buy that's worth $60,000 in a D-class area. And you can do your best to do that interview and ask the guest questions, but they're going to evade it. They're going to avoid it. And it's not my podcast, so I can't say what I want to be able to say because it's somebody else's show. And at the same time, what makes it even trickier is...
But now you can, by the way.
Well, I can now, yeah. So the other thing that was interesting about that podcast is I'm giving financial advice to the listener based on my own experience of like, if I didn't have this money saved, I'd be cooked. If I didn't have active income coming in, if I'd quit my job and then all these things went wrong, I'm done. And I'm not buying real estate for another 7 years because I'm in foreclosure or whatever the case would be, right? So as we're interviewing people that are trying to explain, hey, here's the easy road to wealth, I'm constantly giving the opposite advice here.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, don't scale that fast.
David's a hater.
I'm a hater. Don't borrow money from everyone else because you're going to lose their money. Wait till you know how to do this yourself before you do it. And I'm getting a reputation within the real estate investing community as the old fogey who's always telling people, be careful, or I'm a hater, whatever the case would be. But I know in my mind, I'm like, guys, I've done this for a lot longer than this person. And I got hit with stuff I didn't know could happen. I literally didn't know cities could step in and shut you down and be like,
yeah.
Like, hey, that duplex in the backyard, you got to tear it down. Why? Because you're not permitted to have 2 units out of that garage. Well, every other house on the street has it. Yeah, but they didn't apply for a short-term rental permit, so we don't care.
Yeah.
You know? And so it was a stressful position to be in, I would say, when you have this much influence over people and you're giving financial advice. But that's what's in my heart, man. I don't want to tell people to go scale super big and quit their job when I'm seeing that would have caused destruction for me.
Yeah. No, I got you. And I think... once again, right? I mean, I guess BiggerPockets isn't like an advice show. It's to, I don't know, highlight the guest and, you know, all that stuff. And I think when you have your own show or like my show, it's like, no, we can just talk about what's going on, what the truth is, solve problems. Like even I wanted to ask you, like from a financial standpoint, would it actually benefit you to just let the properties go?
Yes.
Why haven't you done it?
Because I gave my word to
like
the
pride?
lender. Pride, integrity, whatever. I would not feel good about myself when I pray about this.
Now, when you said the lender, is it a big company or are they private lenders?
No, it's a mortgage through different companies that I got mortgages with.
Got it.
There's also, I own a mortgage company and I have GP shares in syndications where if I go into foreclosure, like there's some risk that now my other GPs have when they go to try to refinance. There's a domino effect that goes on with that. So
because now you're on,
I'd rather lose the reserves I had and lose the money I had and just hope the plane doesn't crash. And
could you short sell them?
I would have already done that if I could get the damn...
No, but why can't you short sell them as is?
Like to a developer or something like that? Because nobody wants to buy them when the city won't let you rent it out.
I mean, so they have a value. Somebody will buy them for what
I don't know that the
is.
lenders would let me short sale right now. I don't know what that process looks like.
Well, is there even, there might be enough equity as is, maybe.
I suppose that's possible.
Then you're out of the problem.
Yeah, I'm out of that problem. But it's hard, when I've seen what these cities are like, it's hard for me to imagine another investor being able to come in and fix this problem that we don't. I mean, the fact is you're at a point where you have to make that decision.
Yeah, I mean, we got, it is what it is at this point.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I understand, okay, on one end, integrity, the other syndications you are in that would then cause them issues. So I get that piece. The other piece is, okay, you're going to bleed out and inevitably that result
then
will inevitably
anyways,
will happen anyways.
Yeah.
Right. So do you see a scenario where this actually ever gets solved? And if you don't, and you're just going to keep bleeding out for this inevitable conclusion anyways, all right, well, like, let's just start to go down this other, what's the alternative? We don't want to go to that quickly, but if that's going to be the inevitable
then
case,
you would do what you're saying.
You might as well just do it.
You would sell at a loss. You'd find some developer.
But if you short sell, it's not a foreclosure. So like you end up okay. Like, and you would have to get that approved with the short sale and the discharge of like, hey, if we're going to do this, it's not hitting my record. Like, I forget what they call it. But you just deed it back to them. It's not even a foreclosure or anything. It's
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just kind of wonder if that option's on the table. And I think for a lot of these lenders too, because I've told in full transparency, I've told this to our students behind the scenes. I've had to have this conversation a lot. And so that's why I'm like, look, at the end of the day, in a best case scenario, yes, you have enough reserves, you pay everyone back, you end it, you're done. But in a lot of cases, that's not possible. for whatever the reason is. Maybe they're not making enough money and they can't. Maybe it's so underwater that it's impossible. And it's like, all right, well, what are we going to do? Like, we can't just keep delaying this. Like, we just got to come to a conclusion here.
Well, one of the silver linings with not being the BiggerPockets host anymore is that the David Greene show has done very well. And I can talk about my companies on the David Greene show. With BiggerPockets, they were like, you cannot say the David Greene team. You cannot say the one brokerage. I mean, that company is basically creates eyeballs on themselves like every influencer does. And then they monetize that somehow. Well, the main way that they're monetizing is through their marketplace. So they sell leads to real estate agents. Do you want an investor-friendly agent? Go to this person. We'll connect you with them. They sell leads to loan officers.
I didn't know they do that now. Oh, they're like Zillow.
Yes. That's exactly what Zillow does. Same exact thing. Hey, look at our houses. We'll sell your information to a realtor. So
I did not know that.
I was in a position with them that we end up competing.
Oh, that makes sense.
Because I want people to watch the podcast and go to me when they want a loan and go to me when they need an agent. And BP.
Did you guys do loans nationwide?
Yes, we do loans nationwide. We're in 48 states, right? That's like the main source of income. And then you build credibility listening to me. So you're like, I'll let these guys finance my real estate.
There we go.
And we've got really good rates, lower than most people. We have really good service. Well, if BP's trying to sell that lead to someone else and they're going to 100% me, you can see how they wouldn't love that. No faults of their own. Well, with the David Greene show, like I've got more leads coming in than ever before. So there is an opportunity here if I just revamp here and I start a nationwide brokerage of real estate agents and I look for other things that could be done to monetize that active income can go back up to buy me the time that I need to get these properties unloaded. And now it's like, okay, the weights are off. I can run again. Let's just figure out like how fast and how far we got to run to build back up.
Yeah. If it was me, I would at least explore the option with the lender about a short sale. Because then I don't think it's not breaking your word. It's not affecting your GPs. It's not affecting anything. And it's just ending the pain and misery for everyone involved. Because, I'd be looking at it too, like with your lender of saying, hey, there's a chance that, this doesn't work out.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. Market is what it is. The city's done what they've done. I've thrown everything I can to keep this thing going and, at some point, enough's enough. But look, and I'm glad people, by the way, put in the comments what you think about hearing this. But these are conversations I literally have behind the scenes.
That's why we're talking about it today.
Yeah, like my team on tough situations we face, students, business people. This is the crap that you got to deal with when you actually have a high-level business. You don't have this problem if you don't have 40 properties, right. So like, this is a 40 property problem you got to deal with, and you have to make tough decisions, and it sucks, and that's just life.
Yep.
And then, inevitably, we go back into another era of prosperity because the economy's booming and everything's
wiser,
good.
More experienced.
Yeah, and then it's decisions. Just like, yep, I learned a lot. I'm not doing that anymore. Like, for example, for me, the biggest lesson I learned, so I'll tell you two of the biggest lessons I've learned, okay? Number one, with the flips, you'll never see me have 50 to 70 flips again. It just makes no sense. It served me well for almost a decade. I made a lot of money, but dude, after I lost that much, I'm like, I'm good. I'm just going to do this better. It's not like I'm going to stop.
Well, I bet when you had 50 to 70, you didn't have a lot of other stuff going on.
Yeah. I had more stuff going on now.
Yeah.
Yep. So I'm like, I'm not doing that again. And also too, the biggest problem was I had so much more to lose now because I have other streams of income and other things. So why do I got to bet so much on this one stream?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to have that much risk with one stream when I could maybe make less money with no risk wholesaling and do innovations. Correct. But I'm actually making more money. That's the crazy thing. So, I learned one, like risk is a very real thing that you have to evaluate. When I was a gunslinger, dude, like I did not look at risk at all. I'm like,
you didn't have as much to lose either. So risk doesn't weigh as heavy in the algorithm of your decisions.
Exactly. So that was number one. Number two, I realized that as much as I believed that I was very good at doing a lot of things, because like you had mentioned, 5 years ago, everything you touch turns into gold. It's all good. I realized a lot of that was a product of the market that we were in. And yeah, I'm talented, but by no means am I so talented that I could run 8 businesses efficiently and go get them all to 7-8 figures and like kill it and provide great customer service and be so in tune with it's impossible.
Yeah.
And so I just realized my biggest mistakes and failed businesses were getting into industries that I was not an expert in, or that were super trendy at the moment. And you pay the price because when the trend stops, it stops. And it is what it is. And so I just realized when I doubled down on what I know and what it's just like I've been doing, which in this case is real estate. And, let's say it's social media at this point. It's like, those are the two things nobody can really touch me on with in this space. Is like, I know flipping and wholesaling, and I know marketing and digital, like anything with digital. And it's like, dude, if I just do those two things, I can kill it.
Yeah.
I can create Lead Kitchen, which is a combination of both those, and just do digital marketing and get leads that no one else is getting. I can do education because that's digital marketing and real estate and do it. I can flip and wholesale and do that. And like all three of those can make 8 figures a year each if done right. Why do I need to like mess around and try other stuff? And like, it doesn't make sense. And my life will be significantly easier.
That's a big piece too. You don't have all the stress of trying to learn new stuff
Bro, learning a new industry and a new thing is so hard. And that's the thing I've been telling all these people at like our events. And dude, here's a funny story. So I never really did one-on-one coaching because it's not scalable. And I would do one-on-one coaching with only a select few of clients. It's 6 figures to do for a year. And about a month ago, I said, I want to test something out. For one day, for 24 hours, I'm going to put 45 minutes of my time up for $1,000. And let's just see how many people buy it. And I want to hear what people's problems are. And so I put it up. I think I had like 30 book calls. And I was like, holy crap. Like this is going to be interesting to see. My schedule was jam-packed for 2 weeks. And what I found was that it brought in a whole new set of people, most of which were not in real estate. Because these were all people who were like, bro, I've been following you for a long time. Like, I'm thinking about starting this business, education company. I'm thinking about getting into social media. I've saved up a couple million. I'm deciding what to do with it. It was like literally I was like, damn, this was a really good lead magnet. It made good money, but it brought in this whole new group of people that would have never bought anything otherwise.
Right.
And so a lot of them ended up becoming other things too. But what I learned from basically taking 30 one-on-one calls in 2 weeks was that almost every single one of them struggled with the same thing of wanting to do too much. They were all like, yeah, Ryan, I got this business. I'm making, we're doing $1 million a year in revenue. And now I'm thinking about doing this. And I'm like, bro, bring it to 8 figures. Like you could easily, way more easy, double down on this current thing you do and get to 2 million, 3 million, 4 million. It's going to be so hard for you to start making content from zero.
Right.
And build a brand and a coaching program. Like it's going to be so hard. I'm just telling you.
Yep.
And I had that conversation over and over again. And it reminded me for myself of like, all right, dude, stay focused.
Right.
Stay in your lane. Forget about all this other stuff and just do this thing. Because if you do all these, this particular vertical really well of marketing and real estate, you'll make more than enough money. You won't have to do anything else.
It's great advice. Yeah. I think people got away with doing a lot of different things because the economy was so hot.
I am a product of that.
Yeah.
I 100% have enough self-awareness to know that.
And sometimes it may be a calculated decision when you're like, man, like there's so much wind at our back. Let's throw some more kites in the air. They may catch. You just don't want to think that that's also going to work when you don't have all that wind at your back.
When you have the wind at your face, actually not even wind, a tornado tsunami, okay, at your face, I've realized you have to be so excellent at what you do to stand out. Because for mortgage lenders, I think had the easiest time out of anyone in the history of the last 5 years. It was like, everybody's buying houses. Everyone's refinancing. They're refinancing again 6 months later, a year later. Like, I think lenders literally had the easiest time out of anyone.
And there's so little transparency in that business. They can throw fees into that thing. They can give you a rate, but not tell you that's because your closing costs are super high.
Yep.
There's a shell game that you can hide money so easily in lending that they just, like you said, they got used to making a ton of money without a whole lot of work. And then that became their new normal.
Yeah. Well, and they didn't need any new clients because one client's going to refi 6 months from now, a year. Like, it was crazy. And then now, to be a lender today of the last year and a half. Boy,
Yeah.
you had better be a killer in order to figure out how to get enough transaction volume to do decent.
Well, I think the guys, there's like a rhythm to real estate sales where usually a real estate agent will be the person that generates the lead, the buyer.
Yeah.
And then they feed all these other secondary industries like a lender, an escrow company, a title company, a home warranty person, a photographer, a handyman, a home inspector, an appraiser. They don't have to go find business. They just find a realtor that has the business, right? So you could be in these places that made a really good profit margin, and with a couple high producing realtors that liked you, feeding you, you were just sitting there getting fat, making a lot of money, not doing work. The agents are the ones that have to go out there and grind to find the lead. The wholesalers are out there grinding to find the lead. Then they feed everybody else. Yeah. Right. And so if you know lead generation, you're going to be okay in any market. In fact, when the market gets tougher, you're at an advantage.
Yep. And well, that's my point why the lenders had it the easiest. Because they just ate off the realtors' backs and, you know, all that stuff. But what I realized, and back to marketing, and this is why I'm glad you just brought this up. What I personally realized was, I was like, wow, if I'm having a tough time, holy crap, what is everyone else going through? Because I know marketing, I have organic, and I'm having a tough time. I have a massive database. And so I can't imagine what everyone else is going through. So to your point, whenever I would talk to people, I'm like, oh yeah, things are going good. I'm like, really? Right. I'm like, okay. Because things are pretty hard for me. And I know I got a lot more than you got.
Yes.
So they're really good, huh? And then you hear about it shutting down and you hear about this. And I'm like, okay, whatever you say, man.
And it's important to bring up, I mean, the name of my show is Real Talk Real Estate because you rarely ever get real talk in this space. The people who are making the content are doing it to get your eyeballs for some reason. They want you to invest in their fund. They want you to fund their syndication. They want you to buy whatever that thing is that they're selling. If they come in and say what I just said, I'll get heat in your comments. I can't believe this guy. He should have known better. This is so stupid. Like, you get punished when you come out and you tell the truth. But it is the truth, and it is important that everyone listening understands. This can happen to Ryan. This could happen to David. We've been doing it a lot longer. We have resources other people don't have. We have advantages other people don't have, and we can still take L's. Everyone out there is taking L's right now. And I get discouraged when I see how many people are watching this content feeling bad about themselves because they're not crushing and making $300,000 a year flipping houses, and they keep hearing the story of the 22-year-old that is not knowing. It's not a real story.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say names, but there's literally people that have gone on to podcasts and said, I own 800 units. They're living with their mom and their dad because they lost their primary, they lost their properties. They're not making any money from those 800 units. They're putting capital calls out for all their investors. They're stressed out, and they're still going out on podcasts to tell their story to make it easier to raise money. Now, when you're the person listening to that, you don't know that they're living with their mom and their dad still. I think you or I, we know some of these folks, so we see what goes on behind the scenes.
You're going to have to tell me who's living with their mom and their dad doing that.
There's a lot more than that too, Ryan. There's guys that
are they living with their grandma?
With their moms and their dads. They moved back in with their parents because they lost their house and they couldn't.
But you said there's more than that. What? How does it get lower?
Oh, no, I mean, there's people that are posting Instagram shots with their loving family that are on private jets sleeping with other people's spouses.
Yeah.
Right? Like, people aren't going to share what their real life is. They're going to share on social media what they're going to sell you the dream that you want. And if you buy into that, if you think, if I follow this person's content, if I take their course, if I do whatever, I can have the life they have, you're not seeing their life. You're seeing the version of their life that they want to share. And your average American would be much happier if they didn't think that that was like a possibility that they could get. That they could get into real estate and they could make $2 million in 2 years when they first learn how to do it. If we didn't have this ridiculous FOMO that all of that causes, people would make smarter decisions. I think that's like one of the things that's hard when I'm in the position of owning the real estate and having this stuff go wrong. I've been the target of people that have come after me. I'm talking to the people that are owning the real estate that are all sharing how much money they're losing in real estate, but they're telling you how many clicks they're getting on their videos. They're telling you how many comments that they're getting. They're telling you how their funnel's working, but the actual properties they're buying, they're losing their ass on. If everyone saw that, they'd be happy with the deal that they got that appreciated by 75,000.
Yeah.
They'd be happy with the W-2 they have that still provides a good income.
Well, I'll share this. You know what's interesting is, for one, for me anyways, I don't want to live a double life. So I've always tried to just share everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. And, I'll talk about faith. I'll talk about family. I'll talk about business, all those things. What's interesting is I've been sharing about real estate being tough for the last, almost 2 years. I've shared it. You can go look at old episodes, and I've talked about losing money and all these things. It did not affect education sales one bit. In fact, it probably made it easier. I don't want to say easier, but I think that it provided true transparency where people are like, I'll actually want to learn
More
from
credibility.
Yeah, he's telling me what it is, and he's going through it, and he's still out here grinding, making money despite the L's. He's innovating, figuring out new ways. And I'm in the situation he's in at a much smaller degree. And so if he figured out how to get out of it, I want to learn how he did it. And, instead of trying to hide it and be like the guy who's, acting like the 800 units are going all good and whatever, I'm just like, bro, this is what it is. It sucks. Here's what I'm doing to get out of it. And obviously we still teach people, and I've had a ton of success to this point, and we're still making money, but I got to deal with these L's still along the way. It is what it is,
Yep.
And it's done well still.
As long as you're sharing the real story, which I think you are, which is why I feel comfortable coming on and sharing some of the stuff that's been going on with me, because at the end of the day, like you always love to say, I hear you say that more than anything else.
At the end of the day,
that's going to be on your tombstone. Yeah. Ryan, at the end of the day, Pineda, you will come back when the winds shift in your favor.
Yeah.
Right. Like the situation I'm in did not happen because I don't know how to invest in real estate. I don't know how to value it. I don't know how to run a company. There are things that I just wonder, was this God's plan to put me back? Was this a spiritual attack that came again? How did this many things go wrong all at the same time the relationship ended, all of it at the same time? There's some reason why it's happening.
Let me ask you about that, because I've pondered the same thing. Do you believe that it is a spiritual attack, or do you think that it is a test from God?
It's so tricky. And here's why that's tricky. It's easy to say it's a spiritual attack because then I don't have any responsibility.
Not my fault.
Yep. That's exactly. I'm Job, right?
Yeah.
It's also easy to say it's a test from God because then I'm privileged and God loves me and he's got better plans for me. And so I get either way, your ego can get fueled by that. I think when you look at for the book of Job, for instance, when we talked about that was both. It was a spiritual attack and it was a test from God, right? A lot of people have this erroneous assumption that God makes everything happen, that he's in charge of everything. He does sit over it all, but we have free will. And when we make stupid choices, God allows that to play out, right? God doesn't stop me from exercising my free will. So in situations like with Job, the devil wanted to prove to God that the only reason Job served him was because Job was blessed.
Yeah.
And God allowed the devil to go in there and take away all those blessings to prove to the evil spiritual forces, no, he loves me because he loves me, not because I've blessed him.
Yeah.
And that became a test for Job. It also became an attack against him. Now, I don't want to put myself in this category with Job. That would be very arrogant. But when we're in these situations that you're like, what are the odds that all of these things went down? I think it is healthier to say, what is God trying to teach me here? How would this be beneficial to other people? How could this be a blessing? These weights that I'm carrying, are they making me stronger than it is to just feel sorry for yourself or lose faith in God? I think a lot of people, that's what happens. When everything's going great, they're happy with God. He's great. But when they get some adversity in their life, they get bitter.
Yeah.
It's that, God, how did you let this happen type of a situation where when you live in a world that has free will, horrible things are going to happen. And God doesn't stop it all right away. He says there will come a time when it does, but he does offer to be there for the people that reach out to him in those times.
I love it. Let me tell you my conclusion for me. So, like we're both talking, we're like two whiners today, just going back and forth with each other about our problems. And everyone's like, dude, we got bigger problems than you two. But what I contemplated, it's interesting because two things coincided with me going through the toughest parts of basically my business career. One was I was in charismatic Pentecostal circles, baptized by the Holy Spirit, as some would call it. And so I just got on fire for sharing faith and for just being more bold. And so, literally 2 years ago, before even anything went down, this was back in like March, April of 22, I just started like having this feeling to get more bold in my content at my events and everything else.
I mean, you could see it from following you. Came out of nowhere.
Yeah. That's literally what happened. I just like was just struck, and I was like, dude, I need to just do this. And I've always been a Christian. It's not like I just found Christ, 2 years ago. I was always a Christian, but it was this new level of just, I need to do way more. And I had different people tell me like, yo, now that this has happened, you're going to have way more spiritual attacks. And I was like, don't be putting that on me. I'm not trying to hear all that. This was before anything happened. And then, sure enough, it was like one thing after another, and then another, and another, and another. And, I started to believe that. I'm like, wow, like, these things are happening to me because I'm being more bold, and this is just like what comes with it. It is what it is. And maybe there is some truth to it. But then I started to just really pray about it and read more scripture and talk to more people and understand what was happening. And also too, as you have more time to like look in hindsight, you now start to mature and see why things played out the way they played out. And one thing I know for sure now that I'm still not out of it, but going, let's say I'm 80%, right? Is that number one, there's no way I should have made it through every problem that I had. That's a 100% certainty. There's no way I should have been able to survive so many lawsuits, so many losses, so many different recessions and economical things, one thing after another. And yet God just pulled me through all of it. And from the outside point of view, as if nothing happened at all, and just like actually growth. And so I know for a fact there's no way I should have got through it. And I believe that I believe that stuff was going to happen regardless, because now with hindsight, I can say, well, the market was going to happen. There's nothing I could have did about it. Right. Those properties were going to happen.
Whether you became a bold person or not.
Correct. It was going to happen regardless. Yeah. Crypto was going to blow up. There's nothing you can do about it. E-com was going to blow up. There's nothing you could do about it. The economy itself, the recession was going to happen. There's nothing you could do. Rates were going to do what they do. And essentially it's like the only reason you got through it is because you doubled down and you leaned in to me. Those things were going to happen to you regardless.
That's really good.
And those things were going to happen to you out of your own flesh and decisions you made to go pursue making money and doing these things. You decided to take on 50 flips. You didn't have to do that. You decided to do it anyways. And you're going to pay the price for it. Right. You're going to pay the price for starting those things. You're going to pay the price for all of this because even if you have a guy like David who was after God's own heart, he still made a lot of mistakes and he had to pay the price for his mistakes, even though God redeemed him and restored him and brought him through all this different adversity. He still had to pay the price. And so I think at this point in time, by leaning in, that is only why I got through. And,
so what you're saying is God sees disaster's about to hit Ryan. He's not ready for this.
Yep.
And maybe puts it on your heart. You need to give more of your heart to me and you need to get more bold.
Yep.
Because this wave's going to hit you and it's going to knock you off your feet. The anchoring into me is the only thing that's going to save you from what he sees coming. Yep. Whereas it sounds like it would be easy for the enemy to whisper in your ear, oh, this only happened to you because you doubled down on God.
Yeah.
You should back off of him and then,
it'll be less, less drama and, whatever.
It's a wise perspective.
And also too, it takes it basically, like to your point, makes me not accountable. Of like, oh, like these bad things. I didn't deserve any of this.
Yeah, the devil made me do it.
I did deserve it.
Yeah.
I'm a sinful person. Yep. I deserve way more problems than I actually have had to pay for, And so that has been my conclusion now, 2 years in. And I'll also say that you said something earlier about, maybe not everything's necessarily like for like a learning lesson or whatever. But we do know that in Romans 8:28 that everything is for our good.
He will use all things together for the good of those who love him. It
Yes.
doesn't mean he made everything happen.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
if you love God, he can turn that around.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's what I believe through both of our situations, is that whether it was a spiritual attack or not, there was a level of you should have did better due diligence.
Yep.
I should have did whatever.
I could have hired better people. I
Yep.
could have not bought that many houses at one time. I could have said, no, I'm not going to do these deals. I'm too busy to look at it closely.
Hey,
Yep.
you know what? I'm just going to pay the tax. I don't need to 1031 it.
Yep.
All good. We both just made mistakes.
That's right.
And, at the end of the day, God's going to use it for our good, despite whether it was spiritual or whether it was us.
I think that's the healthiest way. It helps you avoid the delusion of it's not my fault.
Yep.
It's because I'm favored by God. The devil's coming after me, so I can just keep making the same mistakes over and over.
I'll just keep being dumb.
Yep.
It's not my fault.
Which frankly turns off a lot of people towards Christianity because they hear that type of talk coming from a Christian. Nobody respects someone that doesn't take accountability. But it also strengthens your faith in knowing that, okay, these things went wrong. I screwed up. It doesn't mean God's done with me. It doesn't mean he's mad at me. It doesn't mean he doesn't care anymore. He's going to turn this around and use it to bless me better.
Well, and I can tell you for me, and I don't know about you, but I have been pruned so much so that I have way less to worry about as far as businesses go. And I got these core things business-wise.
Mhm.
And I have my nonprofit. That's it.
Yep.
I don't have to worry about anything else. Whereas before I had like 10 things to worry about. And it's like God pruned that regardless.
Right.
And it's like, here's where we're at. And so when I think about Romans 8:28, I'm like, oh yeah, all of this was for my good. It freaking hurt. And it still will continue to hurt.
And that's it's a thing for people that are not believers may want to consider. These bad things are going to happen to everybody. The sun shines on everyone. It rains on everyone.
Yeah.
You want the God of the universe using it for your good, right? Like
And the promise is only for believers.
yeah.
It's not for everyone.
You have two kids. One of them has a father that loves them. The other one doesn't have a dad in their life at all.
Yep.
Bad things happen to him. The kid with the father's dad's going to sit there and explain to him why it happened, how to adjust, how to learn, how to get better. Kid without a dad's just going to not know what to do.
Yep.
Right. But the calamity is going to fall on everybody. You're not signing up to avoid that when you become a Christian. In some ways, you're signing up to get more.
Oh,
right?
for
Like
sure.
Jesus said, they hated me. They're going to hate you worse than me.
Count the
'Cause you're
cost.
not greater than I. That's exactly right. That's a lot of Christians that skip that part. That don't sit down and realize if I do this, it's going to come at a great cost. How bad do I really want it? It's funny that in that verse that you just mentioned, Jesus literally talks about real estate. He says, who decides to build a house without making sure that he has enough money to complete the project? Otherwise,
Lots of real estate investors.
yeah, how foolish it is, right?
Yeah.
Deciding to make that commitment to follow him is something you should think about the same way. It's not all going to be sunshine and rainbows. I love what you said. It's bad things going to happen to all of us, but your Father that loves you will figure out a way to make you better from that happening.
Amen. So we kind of skipped over this, but we talked about it on our last podcast, and I think it's an interesting topic. You talked about, somebody you thought was going to marry, you were going to marry,
Yeah.
ended up leaving, and now you're single, and you're in your 40s now, and you're trying to figure out what to do, and the dating scene is just an interesting place, especially as a Christian,
Mhm.
trying to figure out what to do. So what's it like?
This is not just a David problem. I don't even know if it's a problem, right? This is the world has changed so rapidly fast. Values that we used to have been thrown out the door and replaced with new values. And that change has not been good for relationships. So, I've noticed a difference just in the last 5 years of dating. It's wildly different over 5 years. And there is a lot of content out there. You've had some of the guys on your shows that talk about this stuff. I think transparently, most of what those guys say is objectively true.
Mm-hmm.
I don't always agree with the prescription they offer when they give the diagnosis. If that makes
All right, you
sense.
need 12 girls.
Yeah, there you go. I don't think that's going to make you as happy as you think it will when you haven't had 12 girls. But that doesn't mean that they're wrong in saying men are like this and women are like this, and this is what women want and this is what men want. There is wisdom in that information. Where I think I differ from them and probably you is the way that you use that wisdom isn't always the best. So one of the things I've noticed is that there are certain things that across different cultures Men are wired this way and women are wired this way. And when you resist that, you just make everything hard. And if you just accept it, it's all, in my mind, you're accepting God's creation, his plan for how he wants things to go. So as a man, you feel good when you can come home with that deer over your shoulder and sling it on the ground. It is a good feeling that motivates you to go out there and provide, right? As a woman, the women I've known do not like the pressure of having to provide. In general, most women, now they can learn to like it. So women are going to listen to this and they're going to say, that's not me, right? But your natural state is they don't like when all the responsibility is on their shoulders to have to provide for something. They would prefer to be in a supportive role where the guy is doing that and then they're going to be helping him. And relationships have worked really well over the years when men step up and take on the responsibility of being a leader and women say, ooh, I like where he's going. I want to support him. And they do that, and it makes you better as a man because now you're getting this motivation to provide for this woman, and she motivates you to be more masculine. It's always easier to go work out at the gym when you know your girl's squeezing your bicep saying, I like how that feels. When you got nobody squeezing your bicep, it's hard to remind yourself you need to get up in the morning. It's almost like God created women to motivate us to go do masculine things. You look at the world we're in right now, at least in like California where I live, there's this fascination with proving you don't need a man that a lot of the women have. They want to prove I can do it on my own. I don't need you. Now you've got all these men that are being told, I'm not needed. I'm not necessary. There's no reason. And they are basically sitting around playing Call of Duty and drinking Mountain Dew and doing nothing. They've lost the motivation that they would have had to be masculine. And then you hear all these women saying, where's all the masculine men?
Yeah.
Right? It's the very things that our culture sort of idolizes and says, isn't it great that we've created a world where all these gender roles are turned upside down? Is leading to a lot of the anxiety and the depression that I think a lot of people are feeling because they can't make a relationship work.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of it.
If you're in the top 10% of men, never been better. You got your pick of the litter. If you're well-known, if you're wealthy, if you're in decent shape, if you're confident, you can have every woman. If you're in the bottom 90%, you're just struggling, not knowing what to do to get out of it. And if you don't have strong male leaders that are showing you a path of how to get out of it, I think they've just embraced hopelessness.
Yeah, it's interesting because you talked about, we used to do it a certain way and it's worked for years. And I was going to say, no, it's actually worked for like thousands of years.
Yeah, since the world's been spinning.
Yeah, not for years, but thousands of years or millions of years, however people want to believe. But yeah, I think it's just an interesting dynamic, one that I've never really thought about or cared about because I've been married for the last, I'm going on year 11. And, I never really thought about it at all. And then I had all these guys on my podcast and then, people in our office. And I'm like, oh, this is actually a problem. Oh, I did not realize this was a problem. And I don't know, like there's things I look at from just the outside objective. I try to be objective point of view. And I'm like, well, if you were in the top 10% of men, you never had a problem ever. It's not like today you somehow are just like, it's just, you never had a problem. If you were in the top 10% in your high school, you could get whoever.
You'd get the prettiest girl.
Yeah. If you're in the top 10% and you're in sports or you're like you're just always were going to get whoever you wanted. That's like never.
I've heard
changed.
your take on this, but what if you're in the top 40%?
Well, yeah,
you still had someone.
Well, let's be clear too, and this is social media and business and stuff too. The cream always rises to the top. So like, in most society and business, it's a lot of the top gets everything and everyone else kind of gets scraps, and that just is what it is. And so like if we were to look at social media today and you look at your favorite entrepreneur influencers, everybody could name like the top, 20. And then like after that, it's very murky. And if you looked at the top 20, they would probably account for 80+% of all views. And so it's like, oh.
But the other 20% would get something.
Yeah, they would get something.
What we're talking about in today's dating market is these bottom guys are
They're getting zero.
There isn't a girl out there that is for them that just isn't as desirable. It is like, if you're not in the top 10%, there isn't much hope for you because women don't need men as much as they used to. They can do it on their own. We've created a culture where we are encouraging women to do things that were traditionally masculine.
So how much responsibility does the bottom, percent have of just leveling up?
Well, if they level up, then they're in the 10%, and then they bump someone out of the 10%, you have the same problem again.
Well, that's life. That's competition.
Yeah.
There's only so many pretty girls. There's only so many
but there was a
dudes.
mediocre girl for a guy out there at some point. And now what I'm saying is those mediocre girls don't want these men.
So you're saying that the 10% get whatever they want, and then the mediocre girls and the mediocre men end up with neither?
That's 100%.
They're not getting each other at all?
No. That's what all these podcasts are explaining to everyone. This is where the crisis
So they're all
is.
just single?
Yes. And that's why our marriage rate is plummeting. That's why the birth rate is plummeting. Because your answer is, we'll just be in the 10%.
Well, my mind is just, I'm going to be elite no matter what. So I'll never have this problem ever in my life of anything. I'm just going to be elite.
You got to think about these people that are not Ryan Pineda.
They need to be elite. Just level up.
If they all leveled up, then you drop out of the elite.
No, I will never drop out of the elite.
Okay.
That's just not going to happen. Okay. I'll just keep getting more elite. I'll get more jacked.
So that's your prescription for everybody?
Get more elite.
Is
yeah.
to get more elite.
I mean, look. Here's the reality. I dealt with this my whole life. People are like, no, you didn't. No, I dealt with it in other things where it requires even more levels of being elite.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in sports, okay, you got to keep rising to the top. If you are not elite, you're getting cut. So, and you're right, because there's a person below you who's looking to take your job. And if you don't keep getting better, guess what? They take your job, you're out.
So what if someone said, if you don't make the big leagues, you never get to have a girlfriend, you never get to have sex, you're never going to get married. You don't have any chance with a woman unless you make the big leagues.
Well, I just wouldn't think that's true. I don't think it's a true scenario. I'm just like, all right, yeah, I'm not going to end up with like the girl of my dreams.
Yeah,
but
so my argument is that is the way it was. You're not going to get the girl of your dreams, but you could have a girl.
Yeah.
And what they're finding out now is women are just not interested in guys unless they're in a much higher category. And then it is harder for guys to be above women with how much they make, how they're able to provide, how they're able to protect, because women are now in that realm doing things that men used to do.
Yeah, because they're producing themselves now.
And so when they look at like, what do you have to offer me? A tiny percentage of the population has something to offer the women today.
So I'm going to be clear, and this is the conclusion I'm drawing from this. We think women's mindsets are the problem.
But men have put that mindset in them a lot of the time. Here, I'll say it another way. We have convinced both men and women that we are the same and that the perfect society is one where there is no difference between men and women. So we are encouraging women to do things that have been traditionally masculine.
Yeah.
And inherent in that is this promise that if you do it, you'll get the guy of your dreams. But men don't value those traits that these women, like, we don't really care how much.
And now
money
women
she
have
makes.
created this new reality where they don't value a man as much because they do what the man was supposed to do for them.
I'd probably feel the same if I was a woman. If I can do things that men could do, I don't have to put up with you burping and farting and watching your football when I want to be talking to you. I don't need you for any of those things. What do I want you for? I want you to be emotionally connected to me. I want you to be supportive and validate me. But men are not wired to like that naturally.
No.
So you see what happens is the world we're in now, what they want from us are things men don't really like. And what men want from them are things that women don't really naturally like. And that's one of the reasons you're having such a hard time getting people connecting.
So essentially, I'm just looking at this from all the angles. Okay. So, you're elite. Those problems go away. Okay. So number one, you could just become.
You just need more cowbell. This is your argument for everything.
So you just become more elite. That's like option
one. It does
one.
not fix the overall problem. It fixes the individual's problem. Be elite.
Correct. Be elite, right? I mean, look, I can't fix the entire world, but I can at least help
that 10%.
One person fix their problem.
You know the problem, though, with the 10%, Ryan?
What?
They don't want to get married because they got women throwing themselves at them. So we still have a societal problem of people not getting married and having families because the top dudes don't need to.
Okay. But either way, to at least have that option.
Okay.
You have to become elite. That's number one. Okay, so number two, you're now we got the rest of these schmucks who are not elite. So what do we do about them? Okay. Well, number one, if you can't become elite, what do you do? That's basically the question.
You're going to say become elite.
No, I mean, like, you can't. All right. You just physically can't. You don't want to be. You'd rather play Call of Duty and whatever else you do all day. So.
Or you're 5'6". You can't change that. And women
you could still be elite. You could be Kevin Hart.
Okay. So you got to become a multi-millionaire and become famous.
look, everybody's path to being elite
Well,
requires.
then poor Kevin Hart's going to lose everything that he's got. He's
I
going to
know.
lose his access.
Everybody's path to being elite's different. You
Okay.
know, some people are born with other natural talent that others aren't. You know, so okay, what does that guy do? I'm trying to think through this. Okay, if I'm that guy and I don't have the option of being elite,
It's hard for you to think about not having that option. Because
yeah, I'm just like,
you're the
that's the clear
superior
option.
man.
I don't understand how you just do it. Okay, but if you're not going to do it, then I think you're telling me they can't get a non-elite girl, they can't get a mediocre girl.
The number of women that are willing to settle for that guy is becoming more, it's being less and less and less as they keep consuming social media that keeps telling them don't settle.
What are these women in the 50 to, you know, the 50 percentile? Like, what are they doing?
They're staying single until they hit like 37, 38, 39.
And then they're realizing they screwed up and they want to get married.
That's it. That's the
So
overall
what the mediocre
trend that we
guys,
see.
like, so do they just wait till they're 37?
Then they have a chance and then they get with that girl and then she is just not that interested in him because there's not a lot of polarity that keeps them attracted to each other. And that's why the divorce rate gets super high. Now everyone's getting divorced super easy.
Got it. Okay. So I think the solution is clear. What do you think the solution is?
You don't know the solution.
I know the solution.
My
What-
solution is unpopular. I think it is a return to what I believe God made us to do. Men
That was
need to
my
focus
solution.
on being better men.
I was just going to say the solution is they need Jesus.
Yeah, and that
That's it.
in this case would be practically speaking, men need to accept you need to be a leader and life needs to kick the crap out of you to get there, and you need to take that path and do hard things even if everyone tells you that you're not supposed to. And women should be pursuing what is actually going to bring them joy and fulfillment, and it's probably not being a incredibly successful corporate worker until they're 38.
Right.
Now, some women, maybe they do like that. I don't think the majority of them do, and I don't think they're being told that honestly when they're getting out.
No, I mean, I can tell you from my own experience at my own events and my own company and things, I have those women
Yep.
and they all want a man.
Yep. But are they doing the things that a man would want?
Well, you know,
That's not the game
You know,
they're
we
playing.
got to, you know, I don't know. I don't talk to them enough about.
Let me use a real estate analogy, okay? You got a seller that thinks that their house is worth $2 million.
Okay.
You got a buyer who says, I don't want to pay more than $500,000 for that house. Do you get a transaction?
No.
You either need to improve the quality of the house or you need to drop the expectations. Become elite. Or you need to drop the expectations and accept what you can actually get for your house.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
Now, if you're the buyer.
So the women are the sellers is
Yes.
basically what we're
and the
saying.
men are the buyers
Okay.
that are broke and dusty and suck. And all they're approved for is $500,000. And they're running around
So you're
like
saying they can't become elite. They can't have
they need to improve, like you said, the offer they're making to these women, but they're not.
Yeah.
Because it's not being told that that is part of the masculine journey is becoming excellent. So they can't become elite, but they can get pre-approved to buy something. We need both the sellers and the buyers to be moving on different paths.
Okay. I mean, like I said, in today's society, just become elite. But more importantly, if everyone finds Jesus, this isn't a problem.
Correct, because Jesus can open your eyes to where you see things in that buyer or that seller that other people wouldn't have seen.
Well, and you value different things, right?
That's it.
These women who value, oh, well, he's got to like make X, Y, Z. Like that's not a biblical thing.
Correct.
Providing,
And they won't
is a
actually be
biblical
happy
thing.
when they get with the guy that makes all that money.
Yeah. So I think if they find Jesus, that solves one issue. Men find Jesus, that solves another issue because you have. I think what happens here is the problem is there's misalignment on core values and priorities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Because the reason I maybe I don't see it is because I live in church world and stuff, and so I just see it. I'm like, oh yeah, like when you're young, you're both broke, and usually young Christians will get married. So if you get married young, you don't deal with these issues that we're talking about.
So how many Las Vegas girls do you see getting married at 21 years old?
A lot more in church than you do in just normal society. A lot.
I still don't know if it's a lot of them, though. In church, yes, it's more likely to happen. In the Midwest, it's more likely to happen.
Way more likely.
Yeah.
But let's just say, because you got to stem how this problem even came about, right? So it came about because you have secular teaching saying, hey, don't do this, right?
Mhm.
But if you would follow, what you're supposed to do, right? You're not going to have sex before marriage. You're going to get married quick, okay? That's just what's going to happen. Nobody's staying 40-year-old virgins just waiting for life, okay? So you're naturally going to get married quicker, Okay. I'm just being honest. As a young Christian, I'm like, it's time to go. All right. I'm getting married.
Okay.
And I wasn't going to go sleep around and mess around.
And the girl that you marry in today's culture is being told by all of her other girlfriends.
I get that. That's worldly culture.
Yes.
I'm talking about Jesus culture.
Okay.
And so if they had Jesus from an early point of, early age, you're naturally going to get married earlier. That's what's happened for centuries.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And it's only been in the
order.
It's been only in the last 50 years that has changed.
Correct.
Okay. So let's go back to 2,000 years of teaching and let's take out the last 50 years where people have had all these problems. Okay. So if you have Jesus in the beginning, you marry younger. Okay. That problem's already solved. You're both broke, so there's no way you could even value somebody for their earning power. You're valuing them based on, morals and love and like the actual things. The problem is when you get 35, you do value them based on, well, what do you make? Like, what are your habits? Like, what's your background? What's your body count? What's all these other things that now come into play when you wait? And so I think the problem is more so waiting than it actually is this dynamic of the elite.
I think we're saying the same thing. My argument is that the cultural values are telling you wait.
Oh, yeah, the world.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm saying Jesus solves that.
And the worldly values in America used to be much more aligned with the Jesus values than they are today.
1,000%. And I'll also say that I actually think that it's more of a problem that everyone waited versus it's a problem of what they now value today. Like, I think that is just a symptom of waiting.
Yeah, I can see that.
Even if you weren't Christian, but you guys get early married quicker, a lot of those problems end up going. Now, granted, you could end up with divorce and all this other stuff, right? But just take, for example, you're no longer like picking slim pickings, especially if you're a woman who, they have a harder time as they get older than men.
Yeah, they got their days on market is low. They're getting a lot more offers on that house than when that days on market creeps up. It's just like real estate.
Yeah. I've never heard that analogy.
Because nobody likes to hear about it, but it's the reality of how.
Yeah.
When that house is sitting on the market for 250 days and you're like, nope, I know my worth.
So what's an expired listing?
Oh, what would an expired listing be in this case? This is the person that's so tired of like the dusty dudes that are coming their way that they're like, I give up. I'm not dating anymore.
I'm done.
Yeah. That's the cat lady wine box. Like, I just don't want to deal with this anymore. Yeah. And the perpetual tenant is the dude that's like, I'm never going to buy a house.
Who's the lowball offer guy in this scenario?
That's most of the dudes on like Tinder that are coming after these women, and they're just like, they work at GameStop and they're shooting their shot.
Who's the guy who makes like an above market value offer? They just way
That's
overpaying.
the simp. They're just like, I'm going to go after this other woman that's been divorced 3 times and she wants to spend all my money, but I love her.
But man, I'm overpaying. I got to just lock one in.
And there's a lot of pressure on men to become that in the world that we're in right now. And so like, if you don't know what you were made by God to do, you're going to fall for a lot of those things and you're going to get hurt.
And you're going to be a simp.
You're going to be a simp. And you're going to think you're the man because you paid all this money for this real estate. You're like, look at my portfolio. And guys like you are going to be like, you're an idiot. You paid way too much for that. That's not worth that at all. You should have waited for a way better deal.
Personally, I wouldn't say that, okay?
You'd be thinking it.
No, I like when people get married.
Okay.
I'm just like, hey, you did it. I love it.
I guess if you own anything, it's better than being a tenant forever.
Correct.
These are decent analogies that we're coming up with, though.
Yeah, I think they're offensive.
I guess they could be, but the truth can be offensive also.
The truth. I mean, this is why we're both independent.
Yeah. This was not a talk I was ever going to have if I was on the BiggerPockets podcast. I'll tell you that.
They wouldn't let you have this talk?
I mean, they could have. I would just been very respectful of not wanting to like have someone complain to them about something that I had said about my own views. Because my brand was almost the same as theirs for so long.
Right. That's crazy.
Yeah, but my heart goes out to those men that are not in the elite category. I think you're kind of more like whatever.
My heart doesn't go out.
Yeah,
I'm just
exactly.
like,
you're like,
become elite.
If you ain't first, you're last.
I believe that.
And I don't think everyone can become elite. I think that there's some people that have that are meant to be a normal person.
No, I agree with that. I mean, yeah, not everyone.
Not everyone's a psycho like you and me. That's just gonna go crazy.
It requires a certain level of natural ability and drive to become elite.
Just like not every girl's gonna be a bombshell smoke show. There's some
now we're
girls
talking about
that are going to be
things.
well. There's as far as the value that you have to offer the opposite sex. If you're an elite level guy, not everyone's going to be able to hit that. And not every girl is going to be an absolute stunning woman. Like there should be someone out there for everybody.
I kind of disagree because I think that men are valued on different things than what girls are valued on, okay, in order to be elite. So I think we would all agree to be an elite level female, you have to be stunning, like you said.
Right.
Looks, right? And then there's other factors
Yeah, that's
too.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, looks, character, personality. I don't think any of us as men really care how much money they make.
Correct.
Okay? So we're just basically like looks and personality. That makes you elite.
And how much they like us. That matters too. We
That's
want a girl
personality.
that likes us.
That's your character, all those things. For men, to be an elite man, women value different things.
Yeah.
Looks are definitely a part of it.
Okay.
But you could still be elite
capability.
without looks. There's a lot of ugly dudes who are elite. Okay?
Yes.
So, and guess why? Because they're ripped. They get in shape.
Mm-hmm.
They make money. Money is a huge part of being elite as a man. And then personality plays a role. So, there's lots of ways to be elite. You could be born 5'5" and still get to elite status. That's why I think they all could be elite.
I don't think they can. I think you think that because you have the ability to go do it.
Yeah.
I have the ability to go do it. It's easy for me to project that onto everyone else. But I do see other people that just don't have the drive that I have, that don't have the ability to find patterns and things like I can. They can't articulate themselves as well, that they can be the best version of themselves. But not everyone can be an elite level baseball player. They could just be the best baseball player they could be.
Correct.
And I'd like to see that these guys that are not able to be Ryan Pineda still have somebody that they can marry and have kids
I agree with
and
that.
have a happy life.
I agree with that. I would like for them to be elite, but as a plan B, I would still like them to find somebody. Yes.
There you go.
We agree.
And they should be able to find someone that's not elite also. Not everyone has to be
No, they don't
Victoria's
deserve
Secret
anyone
model.
elite. They need to get their standards in check.
We all need love.
I just want people to understand where they stand.
What's your market value? That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
I
Your
just
house
want
has been on
buyers
the
and
market.
sellers to connect.
That's all
like
we're
you're
talking
saying.
about.
People need
Yes.
to have some true estimates of where
We
they
need a
stand.
romantic MLS. That's all we're talking about. Buyers and sellers connecting.
I'm building that. I'm going to build an objective scale. So you're going to take a picture. You're going to...
An appraisal.
Yep. We're going to give you an appraisal. You're going to tell me, you'll have a 60-minute interview with one of our reps. We're going to tell if you're funny, what your drive is like. We're going to figure all
This is what you're pre-approved for, bro. You can't get anything more than this.
You can only see the other fives.
And you need to find a girl that doesn't have multiple offers because you're going to have to pay way too much.
Yep. Actually, if you're a guy and, you're 5, you can only go after 3s and 2s and 1s.
There you go.
Because, the 5s are going to have lots of offers.
That's exactly how it is. There's a premium on listings right now in the dating market.
And we won't even
And
worry
the
about the
wholesale
elite
market.
people because they'll already be taken care of.
That's it. No one has to worry about them. That's fine. We don't have to talk about the elite guys. Like, I'm fine. You're fine. Like, the guys out there that are at the top, it's a different problem. It's like, how do you convince these guys why they should get married when they're like, I don't see any reason why I would need to. I just don't like this broadening spectrum where
Okay, so if you're an elite guy, why don't you have a wife yet?
I wanted to marry that girl.
Okay.
You're talking about like personally?
Yeah.
I think the biggest struggle for me is that it is hard for me to find a person that I can get strong feelings for.
Why?
I don't know. I think about this so much. Like, what is it that sometimes you're like, I love that person, and other ones like they're perfect on paper, but there's just something missing that you don't have that really, really strong desire to sacrifice for that person. And that's why I stayed with my ex for as long as I did.
How long were you guys together?
5 years off and on. It was a rocky 5 years.
Okay. I was going to be like, well, why didn't you pop the question?
I told her, I want to marry you. These are the things that need to be fixed before I will. She was an alcoholic. She had some other issues going on. She would drive drunk with her kid in the car.
That ain't good.
That is not happening with our kids.
Yeah.
Like, you need to never do it. And in the end of the day, she just decided, like, I'm not going to have a man that tells me what I can or can't do. I'm going to do what I want. And so I didn't want to get out of it because I had strong feelings for this person, but I didn't want to move forward with it because they had those issues.
So why do you think you can't feel that way? I know the answer. I don't know the answer, but I'll give you my Dr. Ryan diagnosis.
Why do I
from
think
an
it's
elite man,
hard to,
from one to another?
I think that I know the effort that I put in life to get to this point, and I don't meet as many women that put the same effort into theirs. And if they did, they put effort into the things that I don't really care about, like what you said.
Okay. I think what you're revealing is that the problem still clearly affects the elite. If you're going to put yourself in that category.
An embarrassment of riches.
Well, no, I think you have the same trauma that all people who wait to get married have.
Are we going to know what it is? Or is this like a...
No, I just think that it's pretty simple. So like when you get married young, okay, Mindy and I got married young. She was 21, I was 24. We don't have trauma yet. We have some, but very little.
Mm-hmm.
We're young. We haven't made mistakes. We haven't developed all of these things. We haven't developed independence and providing for ourselves and, creating bad habits and selfishness and all these things that happen when you are single for so long. But when you get older, all those things happen because out of survival, they have to happen,
right.
Whether you're a man or a woman. You're like, well, dude, I've been doing this solo for the last 40 years. Like, what are you bringing to the table? The same thing we were talking about the woman is the same problem that you just explained that you have with women. You're like, what are you bringing to the table? It's hard for me because like I work hard. I've done all these things and, you haven't. And I want somebody who's accomplished my level of accomplishment too. And so the problem becomes now just with all of that, and I call it trauma, but it's just however you want to call baggage. Baggage is both good and bad.
Right.
When you move out of a house and you have all this stuff, it could be good. You've accumulated all this stuff, but it's still baggage nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that the problem comes back to the older you get, the harder it gets. It doesn't matter if you're older or it doesn't matter if you're successful or not. You're judging the women at the same standard now because of your success. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to find somebody because of that.
That's a great point. Like the longer you put it off, the harder it does become to justify moving forward.
And you have proven you can live successfully by yourself without help. Mm-hmm. So why do you even need a helper? Right? For me, I didn't have anything when I got married, nor did I have preconceived notions that I could be successful or do these things. And then, everything I've built has been with Mindy. And so now it's like clear to me how much she played a role in all of that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of just what I tell like the older people. I don't take it more as like a world thing of social media makes them think that they have all these options and all this crap. I actually think older people just have all this trauma built up from living life.
Right.
And it's just like, once again, back to, okay, you look at this girl and you're going to be like, okay, so like, what's her life like? Oh, she's got a kid. She's had DUIs, what's her body count? What's her habits and all these things. And she's looking at you like, well, I already provide for myself. I already do this. I do that. Like, what do you bring? It becomes this transactional thing that goes way beyond, back to like love.
Right.
There's all this extra stuff now because you've lived life.
Mm-hmm. No, I think there's a lot of wisdom in what you're saying. Have you heard the saying that women don't care about your struggle? They wait at the finish line and pick the winner.
No. What does that mean?
It basically means like most women aren't going to care about what you're going through or how they can help you. They just want to find who they think is the best guy out there.
Okay.
And then pick him, right?
Yep.
But what makes a man love a woman is when they go through a struggle with you.
Yes.
It's you love Mindy because, for many reasons, I'm sure, but a big part of it is when I had nothing, she was loyal. She chose me. She motivated me. So now there's a bond you guys have that's incredibly strong that wouldn't be there if she waited till you were the guy you are today. And she's like, oh, I'll jump on the Pineda train. That'd be nice.
100%. It would be hard to be like, oh man, like what's this girl doing?
And I think it's good for women to hear that because one of the biggest fears I hear them say is, well, what if I pick him and he trades me in for his secretary, a younger, better model? It's like, if that's what you're worried about, waiting till he's already successful.
He's got other options.
Yeah, that's the dumbest thing to do. You want to get that guy when he's a nobody and bond with him during that journey.
I know. Mindy says she bought my stock low.
That's a great way to look at it. I do. That's a perfect analogy.
She bought Tesla when it was almost bankrupt.
It's very wise. And hopefully she's been a good steward of that. Yeah, that's exactly right. We're basically making the case why more people should get married younger.
That was my original argument 40 minutes ago, was that I just think this is more of a symptom of people waiting just overall. The pickings are slim. Everybody's got baggage. Everybody's on a divorce. They got kids. They got trauma.
Yep.
You know, they got this pride issue
Yep.
of, dude, I've been providing for me. You're not going to come in and mess around with my life.
So here's my question to everyone listening. If it is objectively better and you will be happier to get married younger,
I don't think anyone can argue that.
they may try, but they'll change their mind later.
Yep.
And yet there is a culture that is consistently telling you the exact opposite of what will make you happy.
By the way, the culture tells you a lot of dumb things.
Well, what is behind that message that we're coming from the culture?
Well, we know that Satan is behind the world culture.
So if you don't believe in God or Satan, at least ask yourself how you're getting the advice that is the literal opposite of what's going to make you happy. These women on OnlyFans that are really good looking, that think that they're making a bunch of money and so this is what's going to make them happy, are not going to give a crap about that.
Let me ask you a transparent question. Knowing what you know now, you know, you're 41, I think, right? Would you have gotten married early, knowing what you know now and taking the chance?
The problem with me was my stock was so low.
Mine was too.
But you found a good buyer. I didn't come across one that I thought was like...
Knowing what you know now, let's say you would have put more emphasis into prospecting. And do you think that, I mean, you know, your life's been fine.
Mhm.
You know, you've had a lot of business success, maybe not relationship success with, you know, you have great relationships, but talking about a spouse, right? Would you take the risk and say, hey, you know what? Let's assume I would have found somebody young. I'll take that risk, not knowing where it would have led business-wise.
I think if I could have found someone I had those feelings for, yeah. But I did
And you'd
not,
have been okay with wherever the business outcome.
Yes, that I would much rather have a family that was amazing and have a mediocre financial life. I don't think I would have. I think I'm driven.
You would have still figured it out.
Yes.
But that's the point I want to prove, is that as a single, successful business guy with fame and money, you would trade that for a family, a happy family.
Because we're wired to be happier with those things.
And I agree with that. I myself, I'm fortunate that I got both, but like I wouldn't. And Mindy and I talk about this all the time. And this is also what brings me peace, even going through a tough season, where I'm like, hey, if we lost it all, it's all good. We've been broke before. We'll still be good.
When you have that bedrock you have, yeah, you can say that.
Yeah.
When you don't, you lose all your wealth. It's like, well, how my needs going to
Now what do I have?
Yeah. And
now I'm not elite.
That's exactly right. And for women, their wealth is often their looks. And as they age, they're going to go away. And that's a terrifying thing, as you realize that your value is going down on the dating market as your days on market is going up. When you're in a healthy relationship and that happens, you're like, it's okay.
You
This
grow
guy
old
loves
together.
me. Yes. He's not leaving me because we were in this thing from the beginning together.
Yeah.
Not a popular stance we have, but it's important that I think we share the truth.
Well, I think you have authority to say it. You're a guy going through it. I'm a guy who took a different path, and we're just talking about the two different experiences.
Yeah.
And I've seen a similar thing, and this is Christians talking to Christians, but I've seen it talking to all the other guys who aren't Christian. And like I see that, you know, they're 40, they're single, they have no reason. Maybe they've already been divorced. A lot of them have, actually. And now they're like, no, I have no desire to get married and whatever else. And, you know, it takes discernment and spiritual awareness to know the truth, because it's easy, like real estate influencers fronting, it's easy for these alpha guys to front. But I got the tapes. I got the behind the scenes. Like, I know it ain't what it seems.
Yeah.
Like, and that's why I wanted you to like share, like, man, I would actually trade this for that. And I think they would too.
Yes.
But it didn't work out once for them, and now they're still scarred. They have trauma. Back to trauma.
Yeah, and when you look at the cultures that still value marriage, that still fight to stay together instead of fighting to find a way to separate, they're overall happier people.
Oh, for sure. That's how God made us. That's why I'm so convicted. I'm just like, nobody can. It's if I believe the Bible and I believe everything that is written, and I know that God told us, you know, how marriage is supposed to be. You're not supposed to sleep with all these wives. You're not supposed to do this. You're supposed to do this. You're supposed to stay pure. You know, you become one forever. And it's like, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't think God's wrong. For me to have a different opinion means I believe God is wrong. And it's like, I don't believe that. And I've done my best to follow that to this point. And I've been very happy with the choice. And I'm not perfect by any means, but I'm definitely happy with the choice. And I know many others who are. And I've yet to find very many people who I can honestly say are very happy with the choice of being single and waiting. And like, I've yet to find it.
No, and that's why we brought it up today. Is I just think that both sides need to be moving closer together. They need to be focusing on what the other gender wants, not what they want them to want, but what they actually want. And men need to become better leaders and more elite, to your point. And women would appreciate that. And women need to learn what men value and what they like and actually focus on that instead of trying to become the man that they want to marry. And people would overall be better off.
Yeah. All right. So 1, if you can, become elite. 2, if you're young, get married early. 3, if you're not young, settle quick. Because it just is what it is. Your days are only getting worse each day. So
you don't want to get above 30 days on market. It just
settle.
Offers get worse.
Take whatever you got. I mean, that's what it is.
The 3-step Pineda plan to marriage.
That's it. I mean, whatever situation you're in, become elite, have options, marry young, or you better settle. But,
all right, man.
Bro, I appreciate you coming on, man. That was a fun conversation. If you're still here, guys, we went off the rails, but I hope you got a lot of real estate advice too. And for all you singles, just listen. So
there it is.
And go subscribe to David's new show. That's what we want.
David Greene Show on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
There we go. All right, guys. We'll see you. Peace.